And welcome to another edition of Soul Tree Radio on in the Raw. My name is Anthony McLean. Hope you're enjoying tonight's intro. Hey, Rich, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Hey, how are you, man? Welcome to Soul Tree Radio in the Raw. My name's Anthony McLean. We're waiting for our other folks to get started here on the thing. Reg, thanks for joining us. We're waiting for Mike and Gary to come in just a few minutes. We are live here on StreamYard. And I want to thank you for joining me tonight, man. How are you?
All right. Yeah, you can see I'm at work. So hey, brother got to do what he got to do, but had to check in.
I understand. I understand. So what's on your mind, man? In the world, in
Well,
the sports world wise.
you know, it's just amazing me that Shadur Sanders, be damned if you do, be damned if you don't. He was told he need to come to the combine, as I call it, the slave auction. And we knew that as soon as he got there, the vultures was going to pick his carcass clean by any means necessary. He was brash. He was himself. If you saw the tape of him in Colorado, what's the issue? His daddy knows who he is. The young man has money. He's confident. And for some reason, some of these so called experts of the NFL had an issue with him. Now, even Mel Kiper addressed it. I almost fell out of my seat when I heard him say, you just got some people there that just don't like you. And they were nitpicking for anything they can in order to attack him. And, this is getting real old. Cam Newton went through it. Mr. Jackson from the Baltimore Ravens went through it. Lamar Jackson and a plethora of other quarterbacks. And it's getting real old. It's like dealing from a fixed deck. And I don't know if they're trying to hurt the brother's money, but I just want to get your thoughts about that.
Well, it's the same, same verse, worse is the first as we bring in Michael Lewis Ingram. And here's the thing: last year, um, Caleb Williams didn't throw.
Hmm.
Drake May didn't throw. Pretty much all the top four quarterbacks who were picked this past year did not throw at the combine. They threw at their pro day. So this is nothing new. We've seen uh, top flight quarterbacks not participate in the combine, and they show themselves out on their pro day. And Mike, thanks for joining us. We're
Thank
talking
you.
about the backlash with the with the Shador Sanders not throwing in the combine. Now also Ward from Miami isn't throwing as well. But again, it just seems like same verse worse is worse as the first, where they're trying to make an example out of Sanders and everything. And again, it's one of those things where just say you don't like him. Don't tell me he can't play. We
Mhm.
all, we've seen Shador the last 3 years put up the numbers, and even he said it himself. He put up the numbers at Jackson State. Definitely put up the numbers with Colorado. Even in a
Hmm.
even in a bad, quote unquote, bad middle year, he still put up good numbers. And of course, last year, this past season, he got him to a bowl game. But it's the same old with the black quarterbacks trying to get into the NFL, and they're again they're trying to it's spiteful how they're going after this kid.
Well, it's intense the number of methods that they try to control the narrative. And what's up, fam? What I'm also hearing nicely is the fact that Cam Ward is not having it. Cam Ward told a so-called talking head, basically go get stuff because I'm good enough for the draft. I should be selected in the draft, and I don't need you to tell me how good I am. Whichever team decides on me will tell me how good I am. And that's a long way from Cam Newton having his character assassinated by Nolan Nowaki in the 2011 draft. These kids have done the work, and they should not be put down because you don't like what color they are. And I like what you say, and I always love what you say. If you don't like the guy, say you don't like him. And these guys don't have the balls to admit
Hmm.
that they don't like the guys.
Yeah, put your
I'm
name
sure they
on it.
don't like the fact that
Mhm.
these brothers are taking over. And for everybody that's put up money, you got to realize everybody in the NFL represents a made man. There's 32 families. They're all billionaires, all of them. You can't get around the fact that whoever's going to be the first or the second or the third chosen will get a seven-figure bonus. They can't get around that. That's fact. Now, the fact that the brothers are driving the money, that the marquee quarterbacks like the Lamar Jacksons, like the Jalen Hurts, like Patrick Mahomes, they're getting the big money. They're getting it, and you can't do a damn thing about it. You can't make an excuse about they don't do this well or they don't do that well. The common factor is that all of these quarterbacks are very intelligent in how they handle their business and go about their game plans with uh, the game itself and also from studying the game. We don't realize, and they never say this about black quarterbacks, RPO is really a read offense. When Warren Moon
Hmm.
ran the run and shoot, it was a read offense. The quarterback read the defense, and so did the receiver. And that's how he was able to become so proficient with it. When a quarterback runs RPO, he's calling his own plays, literally at the
Hmm.
line of scrimmage. That's no
Hmm.
different than a Canadian quarterback. People forget. Well, maybe Americans don't know. In CFL football, you got 20 seconds to overlook the defense, decide what you're going to call, to kill a play if you don't want that play run, to audible, to do all these things. You got half the time that it takes to call a play in the States. A lot of these guys are used to it. That's why some of them have done well in the States. When Warren Moon came down, he was all pocket with everything that he was going to run. That's why the run and shoot worked. If he had been up
Hmm.
in Canada, they never would have gave him a chance to do it. He came down here
Hey,
and he had the backing
hey, Mike.
of Minneapolis.
According to the expert, Doug Flutie was the best quarterback in the Canadian League.
Oh, they're so full of shit. I tell you,
I had
Doug
to get you
Flutie,
going.
Doug Flutie was good. Warren was better. Damon Allen was better than him. Every time Doug Flutie and Damon Allen played, Allen cleaned his clock. And they don't want to tell you that. I think they've met 3 times, and each time Marcus Allen's younger brother kicked his ass. But again, we don't want to talk about that because we can't let these little facts get in the way.
Don't let the facts get in the way, as
And
T-Mac
one
always
other,
say.
the one other thing to bring up in here.
Mhm.
Think of all the different quarterbacks that have come in from different backgrounds. You know, Kurt Warner coming in from the Arena League.
Yeah.
You talked about Warren coming in from the Canadian Football League. And
Mhm.
see, especially now, so many of these colleges are running pro style offenses. So
Yes.
it's not like the transition, it's not like the transition is going to be as big. Now, yes, there's going to be a transition, of course, because the game's faster and what have you, but they always try to make it out like, especially with the black quarterbacks, that there's
Mhm.
this big almost it's almost like they're quote unquote learning a new language, so to speak.
Yes.
I remember the scrutiny when Aaron McNair was drafted by the then Houston Oilers. And remember, he was the NCAA's all-time leading quarterback when he was picked.
Mhm.
We had set all sorts of records and whatever. But the first thing out of everybody's mouth is, well, he's got to relearn everything that he did in college just so he could, play in the pros. And look,
Right.
we
Mhm.
know that there's going to be a semblance of a transition. We get that.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
they always try to make it out like the black quarterbacks what was that old book, Men Are From Venus, Women Are From Mars, or was it the other way around?
From
And
Mars, but yeah.
they yeah, but they always try to make it out that these black quarterbacks have to basically relearn everything, forget everything that they learned to make them successful to play in the pros. We saw that with when they said this with Caleb Williams coming in last year, with
Yep.
CJ Stroud, with all that. And the narrative gets so old. It gets so old
Hmm.
to with these guys. Now, so far, they haven't come up with so far, mind you, they
Yeah.
haven't come up with a white hope quarterback where they say so and so is the most pro ready. We haven't seen a
You're waiting
Blaine
for
Gabbert, yeah,
Mhm.
or Josh Rosen, or what
Mhm.
have you. But see, now they're tearing into Sanders. Now, to me, I know they're pushing Ward as the number one. To me, what's going on here is I think it's sort of a 1A, 1B.
Right.
I have to admit, I haven't seen as much of Ward as I did of Sanders, but I have been checking out the film, and he has the prototype. He's got a little bit more size to him. Sanders could definitely use a couple of trips to Fatburger wherever he winds up
Yeah.
going, because he is kind of as
The
good
thin
as
in the
mobile
britches.
as he is.
The
Yeah,
light in
well,
the
he can.
britches.
Put it this way: he looks like he could probably put on, say, 10,
20 pounds.
15 pounds
Yeah,
of
yeah, he's gonna
muscle.
have to.
Well,
Yeah, he's gonna
because you
have
don't
to.
want to overdo it, because especially at that position, you don't want to get so muscle bound that it takes away from your strength. But that being said, it's these same old racial double standards and all this, coach speak, and all this other stuff. They talk these guys, they try to talk these guys out of a couple of bucks, and then when these guys wound up being successful, well, we knew this all the time. No, the
It
hell you
all
didn't. You were so
it,
busy downgrading the
Hmm.
kid.
exactly it all adds up to control. Really, that's what it
Hmm.
comes down to. Because again, you got 32 groups of folks. They're all billionaires. Nobody's crying broke anymore. Everybody in the NFL is a billionaire. You got cheap billionaires like the Bidwells in Arizona. You got millionaires that maybe didn't spend, or billionaires that didn't spend their money as wisely, like the Browns in Cincinnati. But everybody's got money. Anybody
Mhm.
that tells you they don't have money, they're full of shit. And so when they get a quarterback up there now, when the salary caps go up, when the take from all the money from TV comes in, nobody can say we're struggling because we're financially handicapped. Everybody's got money. It's how they spend that money that makes the difference between somebody doing well and somebody not doing well. The two Eagles free agents that were signed are a good example of that. Saquon Barkley is a $20 million man. He earned it.
Mhm. He's
Now,
underpaid.
five
He's still
years ago,
underpaid.
running
Mhm.
backs were almost DOA, but he earned it. He got 20 million on top of that, and they signed him to a $41.2 million extension. You
Yeah,
think
but Mike, let me throw some at you. Okay, perfect example. He single-handedly got 20 million, but you got wide receivers making 25 and 30, and they ain't shit. I mean, they're just bottom feeders. But Saquon Barkley, because of the wear and tear of his body, he's still underpaid at 20 million, 40 million
no,
dollars, as
I
far as
get
I'm
it, but
concerned.
you gotta
And you know
realize.
and Mike to further Reggie's point, I mean
Mhm.
look what the 49ers, I mean the 49ers basically gave away Debo Samuels
Yes,
for
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 a
lack of
ham
a better word,
sandwich.
a half a tuna fish sandwich in a
that's
Yeah,
sense,
true.
you know.
That's
and with
true.
Now
ham on the
now
side.
I think he's going to do very well in Washington.
I believe
Him and
so as well.
McLaurin
Yep.
are going to make a really great wide receiver core. But
Yeah.
again, it's this tiered system. You know, quarterbacks make so and so. It was interesting to see uh, when the Rams basically told Stafford, "Go make your own. You know, if you want to leave, leave. Go. But you know, we're not
Mhm.
going. We're not going to match it. We're
Yep.
not going to underbid. We just go see.
See who you
excuse me.
get.
Go get your better deal."
Yep.
And he sort of had a uh, Pete Alonso moment where nobody tried to bid for him, and
Exactly.
he basically had to go crawling back to the Rams. You know, basically so that's taking scraps.
All this shit gets broken down to its simplest denominator. We always talk about athletes and what they do being a regular job. It has more perks. Some pays more money, but it's a regular job. And what's important in the job? Being able to go to a place where you're welcomed or a place that you like to work at. You know, how many times? Because you got to remember, this is a union shop. All the teams in the NFL are union shops. So of course, like all union shops, some are better places to work than others. So if guys are free agents, if Reggie's a free agent, he's thinking, well, you know what? I'm gonna have a better shot in Philadelphia. They're gonna pay me more money. You know,
Yep.
I'm gonna have a better deal for my family, better benefits, all that shit. It's no different than being a truck driver or a lathe operator or any other kind of union job. Some jobs where you are, they take care of their people. And if they do, that's a blessing from management that they understand how the thing works. Jeffrey Lurie spent 200 million to get the Eagles in 1994. Now the Eagles are worth over $8 billion, and he took two people who helped him get to a Super Bowl. I don't know how much money the Eagles made between signing them and winning the Super Bowl. But you know, it made them a lot of money because it's continual
Absolutely.
revenue and it's
Hmm.
ancillary revenue on top of everything else. So you can't say nobody lost money. So they're sitting fat. And it's like, all right, you did well by me, we're gonna do well by you. You're taking care of people who took care of you. It's as simple as that. And
Hmm.
sometimes they make too much of trying to make it more than what it is. Sometimes it's just a representative working in a place that has a good policy and takes care of their people.
Absolutely. What say you, Reg?
Well, the thing that really bothers me that you have these owners that will cut your throat and get rid of you with this funny money because these contracts, all of it can be voided. And the sad part about it, you look at the old players like the late John Mackey, and a plethora of other players who had to go, Mercury Morris, who had to go on their family policies for football-related injuries, and they're still not doing right by the elders. I'm still hot about how they put people in the I'm not Super Bowl, but in the Hall of Fame. I mean, the book we did with the heroes who should be, I'm not saying it right, but the heroes who should be in the Super Bowl, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Hall of Fame.
in
Hall
the
of
Hall
Fame.
of Fame,
Hmm.
especially HBCUs, is a who's who among great talent. And perfect example, Jerry Jones, he go ahead and redoes Zach contract. Now I ain't mad the brother getting that extra money. God bless him. But it just seems like they want to play these silly games, and a lot of players are getting hurt by it, in my opinion.
And now, to his credit, and I credit Dak more than I do Jerry, Dak
Yeah,
is willing to take the pay cut because they want to, they need to re up Micah Parsons when his contract comes up this coming year. Uh, I want to stay on the draft. I don't want to. I don't want to make this the Colorado Buffalo hour, but
And
yeah,
Travis Hunter has basically said he wants to play both sides of the ball as a pro. And to me, it's very intriguing. Again, when you see what he's was able to do, basically his whole college career, and then this year, and parlay that into a Heisman Trophy. And I'll
yeah.
start with you first, Reg. You think Travis can do this in the NFL?
He can do
Do
it,
you
but
think he can be the dual threat?
he's devaluing his value. If you're doing two jobs, you saving the team money. He doesn't realize that if he just work on one specific thing, he had longevity as far as I'm concerned with his playing career, because NFL stands for not for long. He can go out
However,
there and do what he want to do, but this is NFL for grown ass men who got mortgages and families that would take your head off and don't care, and the referees will turn their back and say, "Oops, we didn't see it. We got to teach a little rookie a little lesson." And God knows how training camp gonna be, because you're not gonna have these veterans come in and have some young guy come in and outshine them. That's not gonna happen. Because I guarantee you, don't be surprised if his first training camp, all of a sudden some injuries come up. Because he's not big as what, a buck 89, maybe a buck 90
yeah,
at that. He's small frame and these are grown ass men. You said, Mike, you play football, not on the pro level, but still, these grown ass
mhm.
men gonna tune his ass up to teach him a lesson. And I say, in my humble opinion, playing two positions, you giving away money.
Mike. Well, and needless to say, Hunter Hunter probably needs to share that same shake with Shador at Fatburger coming into the league. So do you agree with Rich? Do you think that in a sense, even though what he's trying to do is somewhat, amicable or whatever, but is he costing himself money by basically saying he wants to play he wants to play two positions?
Well, when you mention him, I first got to think about the brother from Michigan who went both ways, who's playing offense and
Charles
Wilson,
defense.
Woodson.
Ron
Yeah,
Wilson.
yeah.
Charles
So,
Woodson. Hmm.
so you think about
Yeah,
Woodson and what he was
Charles
able to
Wilson.
do.
Yeah.
You got to look at the course of a career. Now, Woodson played, what, 13, 14 years or stuff like that. He got a Super Bowl and
Hmm.
all that. So basically, you're talking about ideally three contracts. Your first, which is your rookie contract, which can be anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Your second contract, which is your money contract, when you become a
Hmm.
free agent and you're up for services for anybody. And if you stay healthy, if you stay above the fray, if you can stroke with the rest of the guys in the league, you get that third contract and you're into your early 30s, and then you can call it a day. Maybe you get an extra one if something's possible and you win a championship, but you're talking 10 years. 10 years to make a lot of money. And it could be all the money you make for the rest of your life. So you really got to think about that. I got to get somebody like Chuck Bednarik, who played offense and defense in the 60s when they had no sense is something that's a totally different animal than me. Woodson played offense and defense, and they didn't play him extra to play offense and defense. There's nothing wrong with being versatile, but if you are, it's specialization. If you're going to play both ways, pay me. Pay me for playing both ways. If I'm going to line up as a wide receiver, add in my contract incentives. If I get more than 50 catches in the season, I'm going to make this much money, whatever it is. I mean, they know how to do that. Incentives are easy. But to have somebody's body handle the rigors of that, that's a serious undertaking. And we know for a fact, like Reggie, you said, NFL means not for long. That's no joke on the body. But you got to put that body in there 60, 70 snaps a game, playing offense and defense.
Now, I'll give this to both of you. If he has to play one position, which position do you think he should go with? Do you think he should be the defensive back? Or do you think he should be a wideout?
Defensive back. I think in longevity, he can have a long career at defensive back.
I think wideout because he's a defensive back in college. He knows what he's looking for. He knows the route tree. The guys are running, and he already knows what they're going to run. He has good hip movement, and he's got decent hands. And he played an offense that was fairly high profile. I think he can do both. Just because he can do both doesn't mean he should do both. One play, let him play on one side of the ball or the other. That's that. Let him fill in on packages, in nickel and dime packages, but for the most part, leave more offense.
But I challenge you on that,
And,
Mike, because he said himself in college, as a defensive back, I know what the offense is doing. So I think he'd be more valuable as a defensive back. He knows the route tree. He knows which direction these guys is going. And he's tenacious. Once that ball's in the air, it's like 50-50. He has a Ivan Iverson mentality where
I don't doubt that.
That's my ball.
I'm not arguing about that. I think you're right. But it's a matter of being simplistic. You work out over the course of a 3.5-hour NFL game. You playing both sides of the ball. That's anywhere from 70 to 90 snaps. And half of those snaps, nothing's coming your way as far as the ball being thrown your way. And if you're on defense, you're swiveling your hips and you're spending a lot of energy running after somebody else. You got to be in a hellified shape. That'd be the equivalent of a running back getting 500 carries in a season. You're putting a lot of action on that engine, trying to get as much juice out of that body as you can. Even though you're young and sturdy and all that shit, father time beats everybody. And that might be the difference between a 5-year career and a 10-year career. You just run out of gas.
What's interesting, and we brought up Charles Woodson. Now, if you remember the Heisman year, he didn't play as many snaps as Hunter did this past year. Hunter, there was, I think, I want to say he averaged, like you said, about 70 or so snaps in all of his games. Now, the year that Woodson played both sides of the ball, he was only in there for certain packages. Now, he played the majority of he played full time as a defensive back, but on offense, it was only a handful. It was only like a handful of plays. I think I want to say maybe he did about 5 or 10 or so snaps as a wideout. They also, I know they had him doing end arounds and all that other stuff. I'd be interested to hear what Woodson thinks about this because, like you guys said, there's valid points in both. I guess, novelty wise, I think a lot of people would sort of like to see him pull it off. But in the long run, like you said, because the NFL is so cutthroat. You almost have to just sort of say, you know what? Let me be either the D back or the wide out, and go from there. Now it's the sort of thing where maybe depending on where he goes, he could be like say a nickelback and be a
Mhm.
full time wide receiver,
Right.
or be a full time defensive back, and maybe just have like say a handful like when Dion did both sides.
Yep.
He didn't play every snap. He did a handful of snaps.
Mhm.
It's gonna be intriguing because now so far you don't see where they're trying to take away his money. They're trying to talk him down in a sense in evaluation. He's been getting, which is kind of surprising. He's been getting fair evaluations from the draftniks,
Right.
good, bad, or indifferent. But
Mhm.
I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be the number one overall pick, but you got to think he's going to be at the very least maybe top five, maybe top 10. I mean, I
I'd
think
say
he's going to
top
be
10.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'd say top 10 because every year, and I think we touched on this briefly last week, every year they're going to overlook whoever the top quarterback or the top wide receiver or the top running back is. The teams that have any sense are always going to go for the best lineman. They want to fill out those pits. And
Hmm.
supposedly, this is a strong defensive tackle draft coming up in April. So a lot of people are going to pick defense. They'll be the best offensive lineman will probably go day one. Although we know day one and day two, all by then, all the offensive linemen that are worth a damn are going to go. By
But I
round
think a
three,
lot of running backs are going to go probably late first or early second and third.
I would say
I've been
so.
told this is a fresh crop of running
Hmm.
backs they're going to get out.
Hmm. You must have read my mind, Rich, because I was going to say, we talked about the impact that Barkley had this year with the
Yeah,
Eagles, and of course, we with King Henry down in Baltimore, and Jacobson Green Bay, and it was
Nixon and with
sort
the
of a
Texans.
exactly, you saw a little bit of a renaissance with running backs in the NFL this year, and of
Mhm.
course, Barkley led the train. Do you think, and I'll start with you, Rich, do you think that's going to change the mentality? I mean, it's not, put it this way, we're probably never going to see like the year of the running back like we saw back in our day, back in 72, where like three-quarters of the running backs had over 1,000 yards, which I guess
Yeah.
would be sort of equivalent to maybe like 1,500 yards now. But do
Mhm.
you think that this draft may be the start of a renaissance of seeing more running backs get picked? Maybe not so much in the first round, but just more running backs being given an opportunity either through free agency or through the draft.
Yeah, because you can get them on the cheap. The running back market, everybody's not going to get Saquon Barkley money.
Right.
And perfect example, you're gonna have a lot of old running backs that should have got paid, like Ezekiel, that was with the Cowboys, and no, his fat ass lost a couple of steps. But what did they do? They brought him back and then shipped his ass out. Next thing you know, it was a trio of running backs and looked like the Three Stooges.
Mm.
They didn't know what the hell they were doing. But there's gonna be some people getting overpaid. But you got a lot of that kid from what to run it up for the Heisman Boise State. It's real interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see where he's gonna go. I'm surprised Gary ain't checked in yet because I don't ask about his Raiders. I thought his Raiders definitely might be looking at him. So I don't know what's going on as far as some running backs, but a whole lot of them gonna get on the cheap, which bring me to the HBCUs. You're gonna have a whole lot of free agents signed again, because I guarantee you they're gonna undervalue, unnecessarily marginalize these HBCU players, like the kid from Union. They're gonna say he's too small, he's not tough enough, and he might get a chance to get a tryout. I don't even think they're gonna offer him a contract. I mean, that's really sad.
You know what? You know
Yeah.
what a good question is. What's the starting rookie salary now? I know it was 550,000 last year. What is it going to be
Yeah.
this year? If you make a roster,
Probably. Well.
Well, the
I'll get.
cap
I
went
think,
up,
but
didn't
like
it?
I
Did the
think it was
cap
like
go
the
up $20 million?
that's how
No,
yeah
no,
yeah
in terms of the stuff
it
for anybody that
the
takes
cap the NFL the salary cap overall has gone up again. It seems like it goes up about 2-3 mil every year, and no surprise, it went up again this past year. Now granted, a lot of it has to do with the TV money and the overall money that the
Mhm.
NFL. We still haven't heard an official thing, but needless to say, as I always say, Roger Goodell's not going to be on the corner of Park Avenue saying we'll commissioner for food, in a sense. So
Yeah,
they'll
will it?
they'll they'll be fine. But but in a sense, it may not happen right now, but I think because of the impact Barkley had on the Eagles and how they literally rewarded him. It may not be something that happens right this year, but it may be one of those things where gradually they'll start to uh, evaluate that the running backs will finally start to get some of the due that they're
Yeah,
doing, and most importantly, they'll get their due in the pocketbook
it was
more than anything else.
it wasn't a mistake that Philadelphia and Baltimore ended up as playoff teams because they ran the ball well and their offensive lines bullied everybody on defense. I mean, they punished their opposition and stuff. And this, to a lesser extent, affected Detroit with backs like Sonic and Knuckles, Jameer Gibbs, and Montgomery. Buffalo also had a decent running game. Green Bay with Josh Jacobs. The guys were running the ball more because it was becoming more effective. Got to look at this from a business standpoint. The NFL tried to censor a position. Literally, they tried to write off running backs as being unimportant. And if they did that successfully, just how much money would it save them? We're talking a salary cap bonus of at least another 10 to 20 million dollars per season. As it stands right now, the Eagles' current salary cap is 279.2 million for their entire roster. And I know for each one of the teams in the league that bumps up at least $20 million, that's a lot of cash. But it would have been even more if they had been able to get away with that whole premise of getting rid of running backs. A lot of teams who did what they wanted and wrote off the running backs and maybe collected that little bit of money are going to lose more in the long run because their fans know they're not committed to having them win. They just are how can I say, becoming successful off the premise that we have a product and no matter how good or how bad it is, it's always going to be in demand. And the fans are suckers for it and they go and they spend the money no matter what, as opposed to somebody who's really trying and we're going to spend the money because, well, it looks like they might do it this year. The whole
Hey, but
idea of
but
fandoms
but
went.
Mike, I got a question. When it comes to the USFL
Mhm.
league, is that going to be like the new farm system, or because they got labor problems now? Moose Johnson, I think he's the commissioner of the league. I'm not sure, and I will give him credit. They do have teams in hotbed areas like Alabama, Houston, and others, and it seems like people are gravitating to it. Crowd's nowhere near the NFL, but still seem like they're doing pretty good.
Well,
What are
ideally,
your thoughts on that?
ideally, you got to realize it's another, how can I say this? The job source or the job pool is including
Right.
NFL and the USFL, whatever they want to call it. You know, you've got thousands of players to choose from. For everybody who comes off a big program, you got the one nondescript guy who played for a small school, who played for HBCU, who played Division III, who never got a break and went to camp and decided he's going to play for a job. He gets in, and all of a sudden, it's a whole different story. You know, they know that their job pool will never decrease. there always are going to be people who want their job. Now, the issue is, will they make them fight for it, or will they say, we have X number of spots available? If you got one of these spots, hooray for you. If not, good luck selling your hash somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because, like you said, it's given more opportunities to a lot of players, especially the HBCUs. It's funny. I was actually on the UFL site, and Reggie mentioned that even they're having labor problems, trying to pay or not to pay these guys.
Yep.
And from what I can gather and looking at the rosters, thankfully there's a good representation of HBCU players on all the rosters. And again, it's just a matter of being given the opportunity. Because again, we seem like this is becoming a broken record every year, and because HBCUs are close to our hearts, they still nickel and dime these kids. Maybe last year you saw no players get drafted and a bunch get free agent contracts. A lot of them, now there's still a lot of great HBCU players on current rosters, but they just nickel and dime these kids so much, and it just gets so bothersome after a while. Got a few more minutes. We've been talking football. I wanted to touch on little hoops as well. I don't know how much you guys have been watching, but you
Mhm.
see where now the Cleveland Cavaliers, best record in the East, just clinched the first playoff berth in
Yes.
the NBA this year.
This early
Um,
already?
yeah,
Already?
Cleveland's won 12 in a row.
Wow.
They went into Boston and beat the Celtics in Boston
Yeah, down
about a
by
week or so
25 and
ago.
came back and won. I was
And
shocked.
OKC has the best record in the West, and SGA, Mr. Alexander, has been on an incredible scoring spree. He had a 50-point game the other night,
Mm.
and let's face it, ESPN's favorite team, the 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 Broken Housewives of Inglewood, otherwise known as the Lakers, are
Showtime,
are
Showtime
hey,
West
give them
Coast.
give them give them their due. They're playing well. You had the trade a couple of weeks ago, getting Luka Doncic for um, Anthony Davis. And as a side note, it seems like the Dallas Mavericks have been paying dearly for that finals run last year. They
Yeah.
Luka Doncic gets traded, they
Yep.
get Anthony Davis, and he's already hurt, and of course Kyrie just tore
Mhm.
his ACL, and he's out for the rest of the year. And you don't know how long it's going to take for
They
the
definitely
rehab. I
stay.
say basically,
Hey,
I say basically all that to say, um, are this who would you consider right now as the best team in the NBA right now? Is it the Cavs? Is it still the Celtics? Uh, are the do the Lakers have a run left in them? LeBron has been playing out of his mind pretty much all year this year. So, what say you? Well, I'll start off with you, Red. What say you as to in your mind? And I know we still got a lot of games left, but who
yeah.
say you is the best team in the NBA right now?
Well, you got to go with OKC. I mean, because they had longevity as far as being on top with the record. Now, it's just amazing how Cleveland changed coaches, but the same coach that was at Cleveland, I think, is at Detroit now, and now Detroit Pistons are cracking eggs and making an omelet, and he should be coach of the year. But guys, this is what I want to throw at you: is this the NBA making up for the Lakers not getting a certain guard that's playing with the San Antonio Spurs some years ago? Is this like the makeup call? Remember Chris
If it was
Paul?
a little bit well, you know, the Lakers, they did make the playoffs last year. They ran out of gas, because although you saw where they had some good young players,
Yeah.
um, the funny thing to me was the Doncic trade came out of nowhere, and speaking of housewives, you can't keep a secret in the NBA most of the time.
Something was rotten in the
And
cotton about that. Something smelled.
that trade literally came out of nowhere, and you don't
Yeah.
see superstar trades like that in the league anymore. And the fact that you based that it was like it was basically a one-on-one sort of deal. Um, I'm
Jeannie
still
Buck
skeptical
said
as to
something. Did y'all hear what Jeannie Buck
yeah,
said? Because I missed it. What did she say about the
the thing
trade?
was Davis basically said he didn't want to be a center. He
Yeah,
wanted to, be sort of a Giannis type, where
So they
he
shipped his ass
he
out. Mm.
well, and see, and going, with the injuries and everything else, like they figured, let's whatever. But a lot of this, I think, was predicated. Now, of course, LeBron got blamed for the trade. LeBron, hey, LeBron gets, hey, look, LeBron gets blamed for everything.
right.
Yeah, really.
He was in the grassy knoll in '63.
Yep.
He
He was
he
the
started the
Eric dude
Chicago.
when she was naked in the video and told her
He
don't put
yeah,
her clothes
he
on.
started the Chicago Fire. He introduced Yoko Ono
He
to
let it
John Lennon.
go.
Yep.
He raised the price of eggs from $22 to $57. The whole deal and
Yeah,
everything
really.
to that effect.
Really.
But 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 but
He got rid of Jay-Z and got Jay-Z suing girls
yeah,
for
yeah,
that. He's probably gonna Oh
have a tape coming
God.
out and all that other stuff and everything like that. But all,
Don't
all
let him
that
make the
being
playoffs.
said,
Oh my God. In the finals.
but you know what? All that being said, he is having he's having one of his greatest seasons. Of course, past the 50,000 mark the other night, and
Beyond.
that made
Yeah.
me
Hey, hey, but look, half of
boy
those
that
scores that he did in the playing game and the other game didn't even count. I think like 75
well
points he had earlier, and they didn't even count them. That's crazy.
that and we'll see. You know, depending on how many more years you get out of him, that may be one of those unreachable records. Because
Yeah, ain't
he's
nobody
got
playing that
50.
long. Yeah, with the crazy
It's
monopoly
gonna
money they
be
making now, ain't nobody gonna play no
it's
10,
gonna be
15 years.
it's gonna be tough. I mean, 50,000.
Yeah.
Remember Kareem's record stood for almost 4 decades in and of itself,
I
and
don't think
now
they
he's
can catch him. They're not going to catch him. Karl
Nah.
Malone, I think, had 41,000 points and he was next. It's like there's no way they're going to touch him. I mean, on top of doing everything right, he has become truly a metaphor for excellence. And we
He
don't give
keeps
him
his
enough
body in
credit,
shape too.
even though we should, or even though it sounds like we do sometimes, we really don't. He's doing things that nobody expected him to do. And it's pissed a lot of people off. He's silenced a whole bunch of haters and he made sure that everybody knew that he had the right intentions. And you can't ask for more of a player and a human being than what LeBron James has done.
Amen to that.
yeah, it's
Hey,
the
Tony,
whole
they even ain't talking about
yeah.
his son no more, so you know he's done a hell of a job. They're not dogging his son out.
Yeah,
what's and to his credit, Bronny's had his moments, and you knew he was going to be a project, so it's again, I think in a sense, what's kind of crazy is LeBron's taking all the all the pressure off of Bronny by
yep.
basically having arguably an MVP type season. And
Mm.
again, to piggyback on what Mike said,
Hmm.
unfortunately, as great a player as he is, we may not really realize his greatness until he's gone. Now, I'm
Yep.
not trying to retire him or anything like that, but there's we talk about this so much, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, or what have you. It's so much about what he quote unquote can't do
Yep.
as opposed to what he's been able to
Mhm.
accomplish. And Not
Yeah.
to mention the off the field stuff with his foundation, the fact that he's been a stable person on and off the court,
School.
and there's just and like you said, just with the schools and everything. But there's still, you can hear that Dave Chappelle sketch in the background. Hate, 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 hate.
That's
It's
right.
it's almost like
Yep.
they almost have to hate him so much instead of really appreciating what he's been able to do
Yeah.
during this year. Now, I don't now they've gone from being the fifth seed to right now they're the number two seed in the East. They're not going to
Mm.
catch OKC. OKC
You mean
is
the West?
up
In the West.
double digit, double in the West. I'm sorry, that's right. But it's going to be interesting to see now to see if they've got a title run in there. Actually, to be honest with you, I think people, as even though Cleveland, rightfully so, gets their due for having the best record in the East. The Celtics are still the team to beat to me. You
Mhm.
know,
What I
the,
want to
the
throw at you, T, is when it comes to coaching, JJ Redick might be doing good, but he's not been in a playoff environment where you got 5 and 6 games that
yeah,
you can study the
yeah,
team and the tendency. So I give JJ credit for the regular season, but the playoffs is a whole different ball of wax.
and the NBA is the one to me. I don't want to come right out and say the regular season doesn't mean anything. I mean, it is important, but again, you know, when you got them back to backs in like say December and January,
Yeah.
yeah, they mean something. But when it comes
Hmm.
to the playoffs, where everything's half court, where it becomes like football, where every game is like a possession versus possession,
Mhm.
and most importantly, you're going to have if you're going to have a sustained run, you're going to have to make some. You're going to have to make. There's going to be certain games where you're going to have to make a defensive stop or
Yeah,
stops to win games.
yeah,
And you look at teams like Denver. Now, granted, Denver's won a title, and other teams. Milwaukee actually quietly has been playing well as well.
Mhm.
You look at some of the teams, and you know that they can compete offensively, but and this is the only thing. That's the only thing why I'm not all the way in on the Lakers. I don't think they're that great of a defensive team,
Mhm.
not for the long run. And
they
the
don't have no,
question
they
to
don't have no
me,
rim protector, nothing in the middle.
yeah, and see that was the double-edged sword in getting rid of Davis, because even though Davis didn't want to be a center per se, he still gave you that
Played like a
size
yeah.
inside.
Yeah, yeah, they got
So
no
that's the
inside person.
paradox. Cause see, look, uh, we've already seen on given nights when Luca and LeBron can basically outscore anybody, but regular season you can get away with that. I just don't think they can get away with that during the postseason unless they take their game to another level defensively. I just don't see that. Now, the funny thing with OKC is they don't really have that presence inside either. And it's weird how that's always been sort of a Western Conference thing. It seemed like to me,
Yep.
and
That's
maybe I'm missing it, ever, ever since Shaq and Kobe sort of broke it off, there hasn't really been that dominant center in the Western Conference. Now I know OKC when they made their run a few years ago had Serge Ibaka.
right.
Then they had Adams, but you haven't had. And again, I guess it's reflective of the league as well, where you haven't had that dominant big man in the middle, that space eater, that guy that's just gonna, be a difference maker. I guess the closest we come to that now is Giannis. The Knicks were hoping. I think the Knicks were hoping they were getting that with Cat, but he's been off injured as
Yep.
well this year as well. So and maybe we're showing our age because we're talking about centers, and it's become more of a guard oriented guard
Mm-hmm.
slash small forward type of league. But to me, the West is, yeah, again, okay, so you have to consider them, the favorites. And the thing again with Cleveland, they don't really have that dominant big man
Smallish, yeah.
either.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even the Celtics. Now, Al Horford, God bless him, he's, hey, he
Is he
plays well
80
for an
years
86
old?
year old
He
guy.
about 80, ain't he?
He's maybe 6'6".
But
He's
he's
older than
he
his
80 he
he's
80
older
years old, ain't he? He
he's
has
o-
to
he's older
be.
than his he's put it this way, Reg, he's older than his dad now. And so that's so
Is that in dog
it's
years?
amazing. It seems like, I'm not saying Al's old, but I think there's some microfilms of him at the
He was at the Last
Last Supper.
Supper. Yeah, he was at the
I'm gonna
Last
leave it
Supper.
at that. Yeah,
Well,
I'm gonna leave it at
Al
that.
not old, but him and Noah's Ark had a conversation about building the ark. What do you think?
Yeah, put it this way. When Jesus said one of y'all going to betray me, he said it might be you, Al. I'm not sure, but that's another story in of itself. But it that being said, it's going to make for a real intriguing. It's going to really make for a really intriguing playoff this year to me because you've got a look. You've got a little. It's sort of like a wedding of something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue in a sense because you've got a bunch of teams that could possibly possibly make a title run here. So it's again it's to me it's going to be a very very interesting run. Got just a few more minutes here, guys. Want to get your final thoughts on something that you want to focus on. I'll start off with you, Reg. What are your final thoughts on the evening?
The State of the Union address was not only vicious, but it showed that the criminal act is at its highest peak. As I said before, elections have consequences, but for David Axelrod to attack Representative Al Green, he must forget what his boy, and I'm saying just like that, his boy Barack Obama went through when they screamed "You lied" and booed and hissed. These, well, I can't say what I want to say, but these Dixiecrats, these Barry Goldwater Dixiecrats, and I know Barry Gold was Republican, but it just seems that the black women have more spine and guts than these punk ass Democrats men. For
mhm.
David Axelrod to attack Representative Al Green showed that he needs to carry his side ass to the Republican Party with James Carville. Because I'm sick of these people pandering to 47. I want to say what I want to say, but with the state of the things are now, hell, this might be our last show, so I got to watch what I say. I'm just being real. Let
Mhm.
me shut
Hey,
up.
they may
That's it. Let
actually
me shut up. Let me shut up.
no. Hey, they may begrudgingly they may actually learn something from watching the show, but I digress.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
doubt it.
Mike,
Well, you know
Michael.
what? I'll go where Reggie left because Al Green, if he really wanted something to bitch about, he could have said, "What about reparations?" You know, it seems like
Amen.
a
Yeah.
far fetched
Yeah.
subject, but they're going to have to deal with it. The Democrats have been busted for saying that they're on our side when really they've been on their own side and they don't really give a shit about black people. In
Got
that
that right.
aspect, I want every state to have on its referendum not a study, but reparations, cash reparations. If say for argument's sake, each of the Nisei were given each Nisei household, the Japanese Americans were given $50,000, we'd do at least 10 times that. And they know it.
Amen.
They can't
Amen.
compute how much money we're really owed, and they're trying to stall. Now, we may not get it before I die or whatever, but we are going to get it. Everybody has to be consistent on this. But I want to throw this in before I go. That son of a bitch who killed George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, there is a petition going out trying to
Yeah, I
say
saw that.
that he
Yeah.
deserves a pardon.
On
Now,
what grounds?
exactly. Remember, 8 minutes.
Unbelievable.
Think about the next time you look at your watch, 8 minutes. That's how long he held that brother and choked him out. 8 minutes. His life is passing through him. He's calling on his mama saying, Mom, coming to join you because this redneck son of a bitch is choking me out. And they're going to say, even if he gets approved for the pardon, that only takes care of the federal case and not the state case. There shouldn't be any case. His ass belongs in
Wow.
jail. He should fry,
Yeah.
and it should long been settled. But the fact that they're bringing this up only stirs the pot with regard to just how much white, what can I say it, white supremacists are willing to go to make their point. And people are going
You
to die
done messed me up,
needlessly.
Mike.
And it's like, well,
Yeah.
no,
Wow.
we have to think about it. You know, everybody's going to have to make a move and take a stand on this. I don't want to have to think about it. I was thinking enough about it when it happened the first time, when I saw that sister's video on her phone showing him choking that guy's life out. We know for a fact that there are crooked cops everywhere. Some of them even have tattoos signifying how many times they killed a person of color, a black person or Hispanic, and they don't say anything about it. The bottom line is something must be done. If Al Green was getting shouted out or censured because of something like that, I'd be down with him. But all he was trying to do all he was trying to do was get his 15 minutes.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Messed me up.
and in that whole thing of reparations, Mike, the the tally gets bigger and bigger every year, as far
Oh
as I'm
yeah,
concerned. That you know,
yep.
that thing gets bigger and bigger every year because to me, the more they keep avoiding it, the price is going to get higher and higher and higher and higher. And if it
Someone asked me how much would you pay? And I'd say, well, if the first slaves were brought in 1619, we go 1619 times 406, that's how many years up to now, times 24 times 7 times 365, and maybe you have the amount of money each black person is due. I'm not talking about black immigrants. I'm talking about foundational black Americans, American descendants of slaves. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about black people who are controlled by Russian bots or any of that bullshit Joy Reid tried to say. I'm an American descendant of slaves. The 5 most toxic words I've ever heard were all men are created equal. No.
That's a
Cut the
lie.
check. Stop the bullshit.
That's a lie.
absolutely and see the thing is, and you have to remember, the slave masters were compensated, but the families of slaves weren't.
Thank you.
Just keep that in mind.
That's right.
Just keep that in mind when someone tries to uh dissuade the conversation in regard to reparations,
Oh
because
yeah.
it's literally all there in black and white. When you think of what happened with the Japanese folks who were put in internment camps here in this country, how they're still giving money
Yep.
to Israel, how they're begrudgingly giving money to Ukraine,
Yep.
even though Trump did his little Arsenio Hall finger wag to him
Yeah.
last week.
Mhm.
It's a mess. It's a mess. I need trust me. I need especially now. We need these little diversions just to keep our mind off of it. And
Yo,
one quick thing, Mike. I want to real quick.
yes.
Does Ovechkin catch the great one this year, or is this going to be something
10 to
you think he'll
go.
catch him this year?
I say
10 to go.
Ovechkin does catch him. And let me throw this little extra hockey tidbit in there. I want to also recognize the Icelanders, Michel Bossy, the one that they call La Machine. scoring over 500 goals in 10 years. He was one of the best to ever play. He didn't get the notice that he should have got with Potvin and Trache and all the other guys on the Islanders during those championship years. But he was the Islanders' version of Yari Curry, a scoring forward who could do everything. And I recognize him because he was a great player. I love hockey, and it was a pleasure to watch Michel Bossy skate.
If not for concussions and a bad back, he might have shattered that. He might have shattered that record because,
Oh
like you
yeah,
said, for a 10-year stretch, he was Gretzky, Rocket Richard, Phil Esposito, Bobby
all
Hull, all of them combined, man.
yeah, he
Just
was.
just a he just a machine.
Yep.
Absolute
Contract
machine.
fits
So
on him.
so do you think he'll break it this season, or do you think it's going to spread over to next season?
I think he'll break it this season. Ovechkin's one of those guys. He's goal oriented. I like the fact that he has the kind of shot where he doesn't let a defense tone him down. He can create his own shot. He can score his own points. He doesn't need help. And the fact that he doesn't need help will allow him to facilitate scoring those goals.
Yep. Yeah. He's basically from day one, he has just been, he's to me, he's the Tasmanian devil of goals because
He
he
is.
just
Yeah.
he is just when he's on a roll, he's just
And
and
T, don't
again,
forget he
it's
got hurt this year. He had a back injury.
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, he
And
was
he's
out for a
been an
good period of
ambassador.
time.
He's an ambassador of the game. He truly
Yeah.
loves
Yes, he
hockey,
is.
and he wants hockey
Eh, eh,
fans to enjoy hockey and
Even though
stuff
he's a
like that.
Russian, I won't take that from him being a Russian and
Exactly.
Nah,
being one of
nah,
Trump's
nah. Hey,
co-hosts.
you know what? If there's any, if there's any justice, he does it on the night where that moron is put his foot in his mouth again. But that's another story for another day, guys. Thanks again for joining us here on Sultry Radio and the Raw. I want to thank our buddy Ricky Hampton for allowing us to use the facilities again, and I also want to apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning. Still trying to work these bugs out, but we're getting there. We're getting there. We're going to be on every Thursday, 8 p.m. About an hour or so. Talking sports, whatever comes to mind. So for Michael Lewis Ingram, for Reggie Howe, I'm Tony McLean. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you again next Thursday here, 8 o'clock here on another edition of Soul Tree Radio in the Raw.
Night,
Have a good night,
everybody.
guys.
All
Yes,
right.
sir. Great show.